Get ready to get sticky. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel, which obviously you already know because I'm unforgettable. Whatever platform you're listening on right now, go either follow or subscribe if you're not already following or subscribed. Go give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review. Nice reviews only, please. Go follow Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram. Go follow Sticky Situations Pod on TikTok. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast, please send me an email at stickysituationspod@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram at stickysituationspod. I need more guests always, and I would love to hear your story, so please reach out. Same goes for if you would like to date any of my single guests. If any of my guests who say that they are single sound like someone you might be interested in, send me an email, send me a DM. I can't make any promises, but I will definitely try to make it happen for you. Okay, everybody, let's get into the episode. I have an extra special guest today. Please welcome Daniel. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Very good to
Of
be here.
course. Thanks for being here. So, Daniel, before we get into the episode, I always ask my guests, can you tell me your age, location, relationship status, and religious denomination?
Sure. So I'm 35 and I'm single. I'm in New York City and religious denomination Orthodox. And we'll get into this, but probably a little somewhere between modern Orthodox and a little to the right of that. But,
Okay.
generally speaking around there religiously.
Okay. Yeah, I always ask my guests just so my listeners and I have like a little bit of a reference to your dating pool and kind of like what world you're dating in. So, do you want to start with a story? I don't know if you want to start. I know you mentioned to me that you have like a really interesting background. So, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that first before we get into stories.
Sure. So I'm probably one of the more unusual, guests you would have on this podcast, and that certainly has influenced my dating experience. I am a practicing rabbi. I do that part-time. I also do work in the nonprofit sector. I'm also in HR. I do that during the week, but being the Rav of a shul at my age, not being married is of course a very interesting thing. And sort of compounding that, I am one of those people that have the unique situation of being technically a ger, but also like a Baal Tshuva. I was brought up believing I was Jewish. My mother did not have an Orthodox conversion, so I sort of come with that piece of it. Coming into this being a rabbi, but not being brought up in this community, not being my last name would give this away. I'm Sephardi and Ashkenaz mixed, so that kind of makes things very interesting also. And people really don't know what to make of it because I guess I really can't be put into a box so easily or so cleanly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting. It's like all the things you listed, it really like you can't be put into a box, but I find that like a lot of the world in general, but especially in the Orthodox world and in the dating world, people want to define each other like into boxes, but it's so hard. Like, even for myself, like I was thinking about it. I'm recently single again, and I'm like, okay, do I want to talk to a shadchan? Like thinking about what exactly I'm looking for, and it's really hard because in one sense it's like defined in one way, and the other sense it's defined in another way, and it's like I don't know how anyone finds anyone to marry.
Right. People really get caught up on words, they get caught up on definitions, preconceptions. And I really see a lot more of that nowadays, where people will look at a resume, never having spoken to a person, and just by sort of picking up on things on a resume of what is said or what is perhaps not said, people will think that they could really figure you out fully based off of that. And they'll often determine that the person is either too from or not from enough or whatever other assumptions will come from even just picking up on keywords that are said or not said on a resume. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it really is. And we talked about this. Well, Daniel hasn't heard the episode because it's not released yet, but Sticky Situation Nation, you'll have heard my last episode where we talked to a Khan and she said like one of the biggest problems in the dating world is the resumes. And resumes and
Or
pictures, like you're defining a whole person into this piece of paper and one little picture. And Yeah, it's really hard. And whereas like if you would meet someone and you hit it off, like yeah, you have to have certain things that align, but it's not as black and white.
It definitely is not. And what I find for myself is if I say on a resume that I have smicha, as part of my education or that part of my employment is in Rabbanis, people automatically assume, oh, he must be too frum for me, even though I'm very much in the world. And that's why like labels are such a confounding and perplexing thing because it's like, how do you reduce a person's entire relationship to halacha, a person's entire conception of what shitas they follow? How do you reduce it to a soundbite? Like for myself, I enjoy music, I enjoy culture, I enjoy a good movie, but just due to the fact that I also produce Torah content, I'm a rabbi, I teach and do these sort of Kodesh things, people automatically assume, oh, he must be too frum, or they think that you're out to judge them or give them tachacha or whatever the story might be.
Yeah. And it's too bad. It's too bad because I feel like people judge everyone, not just in your case, but in everyone's case. They judge on little details that aren't the full picture and also might not necessarily give you the full picture. So I completely
A
agree
hun-
with you on that.
100%. And I think there's very often a quickness to make judgments based on things that may have been in a person's past. And the irony of that is, like, isn't teshuvah such an important part of what we believe? Like, don't
Yeah.
we, like, isn't this the ikar of Judaism that we believe people change and evolve? And we very often withhold the rahmanis, the sort of grace that we want to be extended to ourselves. We very often withhold that from the way that we treat other people. And I see that especially in the dating process also. And I think that's something that we definitely, need to have sort of a cultural paradigm shift on as well.
Yeah, I agree. But Daniel, do you want to tell a story?
Sure. Well, I have plenty of them. So I could share a story that happened in the not too distant past. Person was totally adverse to ever having any conversation on the phone. And that's just something that made it very difficult even to try to get to know the person. We had a couple of dates, but the person was just open to texting in between dates. And the person also didn't want to go through a shotgun. So that made it sort of very, very difficult to really establish any sort of sense of connection or meaning or anything like that. I said to myself in the process, how well can you expect to get to know a person through just texting? I would say the other extreme might not be so good. Like it might not be such a good idea to have excessive phone conversation, especially at the detriment of spending time in person. But without having the pieces there to really make yourself more vulnerable or to give the time to truly get to know somebody, how can you even decipher whether something is shaykh, whether there's compatibility or not? So that's definitely something very frustrating I ran into.
Wait, can I
You know,
ask how long
sure.
was it in between dates?
About a week in between dates, sometimes a week and a half.
Okay. So that can be a long time. Like it's
Yes.
interesting. It's interesting that you bring this topic up because I had my one of my close friends had a situation like this that was similar where she went out with a guy. She went on a few dates with him and he wanted to talk on the phone in between dates and she was like, "Why don't we just go out? Like why do we need to talk on the phone? Like I'd rather just like go on a date." And I don't know, it was like a little bit it was a discussion at a Shabbos table. My friends and I were all talking about it. I think the conclusion we came to was if she liked him, she would want to talk to him. But it's not always so simple. Like, I was just recently dating someone, and we were at the point of seeing each other like twice a week. And you have to understand, my schedule is jam packed. Like,
Oh, yes,
I
as is mine. Mhm.
yeah, my schedule is jam packed. I work late. I it's I dated him predominantly like during a very busy time for me at work. So even making the time for 2 days a week to see him in person was like a lot. And then on top of that, it was like I have all of my other responsibilities that I have. I have the podcast, I have friends, I need time for myself also.
Of
So
course.
when I'm getting home at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and I try to get in my bed around 9:30 or 10, that doesn't leave much time in my night. So I had to tell him because he we would go out and then he would ask me pretty much almost every night that like he was available or I was available if I wanted to FaceTime. And I had to tell him, I'm like, it's not that I don't want to talk to you, it's that I have other things I need to do. And I also need time for myself. I can't, I'm giving you, I hit my breaking point where we went out. And when I went out with him, I was very present with him. My phone was away. I was completely, my attention was completely on him. And I spent the whole evening with him. It's like I met him right from work until I went home. And going home was later than I normally go to bed. So, and then the next night, immediately he's like, "Oh, do you want to FaceTime?" It's nice to build momentum in a relationship, but it's also can be too much. So, I understand what you're talking about of trying to build momentum. And it is hard to go a week and a half, a week in between dates. When we were going a week or more in between dates, yes, I would make that time for a short FaceTime call if I got home from work in time and everything else worked out. But when I was at the point of seeing him twice a week, I it was too much. And it wasn't that I wanted to talk didn't want to talk to him. It was that I also like in early stages of dating, it's not the expectation to give up your entire life for that person
A
or
hundred
ever in
percent.
dating.
And I think this is a very important point because, so in addition to everything else that I do, I'm actually also pursuing a graduate degree in clinical social work. So I'm very interested in sort of the dynamics of relationships, relationship dynamics. And I think it ties into really a very bigger concern that we have about what makes a healthy relationship or what are our expectations for healthy, balanced relationships. And it really goes down to being healthy, balanced, well-rounded individuals. And I think it's something that we often see many people struggling with. At the end of the day, and I'm a very, very firm proponent of this, at the end of the day, a relationship is not 50-50, but it's 100-100. It's two people coming together that have what to contribute, what to do to help one another, to give to one another. But it's something that we really do need to come into with a very, very firm sense of self and being very, very attuned to the needs that we have as individuals. And when it does become excessive at the expense of us working on ourselves and doing the things that we need to do to be happy and well-rounded, I agree that it's a very, very big problem. And in the situation that you were talking about, and it's something that I've even experienced where sometimes people do want to have the momentum in person, but there has to be a recognition of the fact that, well, one of the reasons why you're interested in me is because I'm a hardworking professional and successful. So I have to prioritize work and education as well. But also, you would certainly want to be with somebody healthy. We have to attend to our needs emotionally, mentally, physically, the gym, friends, socialization, oral learning, activities, recreation, whatever it is, whatever it is that we do outside of the rat race to be those healthy, well-rounded individuals that will ultimately make us better partners.
Yeah. No, 100%. And honestly, that's where I hit my breaking point because I was trying to give him work was actually taking a lot of my time and energy and emotional energy. And I still, when my friends were doing things, I still wanted to hang out with my friends. And then whatever spare time, like or whatever energy I had, I was trying to give to him. And I was the one who was suffering because I I didn't even have the energy to answer. I went back afterwards and I had so many unanswered texts because my day was so busy and then my nights I was just drained or busy. I wasn't able to watch any of my TV shows because I didn't have time. And at the end of the day, honestly, it wasn't worth it because of the way things ended, but it was a complete waste of my time and energy. But yeah, you have to like fill your own cup you before you can give to other people.
100%. And I think in a lot of cases, people do come into dating with sort of unaddressed insecurities. And I think those sort of unresolved insecurities very often translate into sort of these dynamics of neediness and so forth. I'll share with you another experience
Okay.
where I really, fortunately, saw this sort of firsthand. I went out with somebody not very long ago who they had issues, and I was aware of their issues. They were divorced and they didn't have their kids at the time and so forth. And the dates really just became sort of me listening to them complain about life and the situation they're in. And I think for those of us that are sort of naturally inclined to be listeners, and those of us that sort of have sort of that INFJ personality where we do like to listen and we do like to be empathetic and we're very emotionally intelligent. I think very often people like us end up being sort of on the receiving end where people just want to unload and perhaps are looking more for free therapy than a date that they could potentially get to know somebody and build a life with.
Yeah, that's hard too. I'm probably guilty of that. No, I just talk a lot and I'm incapable of keeping a thought in my head, but I do think I'm pretty emotionally healthy. I do have a therapist, I have friends, I have a good relationship with my parents.
Um,
I have enough people to unload on. So I just talk a lot.
yeah. Yeah, that's really what it needs to be. A shock It needs to be a back and forth. At certain times, one will talk more, the other will listen more. But the hope is that you can establish sort of that dynamic and that communication and keep it going. And hopefully in a way where it doesn't feel like people are just using you to unload on. That's certainly something that we would hope for.
Yeah, no, 100%. You said you're pursuing a degree in social work right now or
Yes,
graduate degree in
I
social work. So,
yes, I am.
do you find that women you go on dates with will kind of treat you as a therapist?
It does happen sometimes. It definitely does. And also, practically what I do, the work that I just do in general is very much attuned sort of to human relationships, HR, the nonprofit world, religious institutions. All of these things are very, very heavily dependent on human factors. And I put out a lot of fires at work every day that come up with just misunderstandings and just sort of the normal things that come up in day-to-day interactions. So I definitely think that I just often do tend to attract people that are looking to unload. Nobody certainly is perfect. Everybody has challenges in different ways, but there sort of is this bigger discussion of what point do you introduce that into the realm of dating? And yeah, I do find that very often knowing what I am into and where my aptitude lies and my professional focus is. Yeah, I do think very often the date ends up sort of being impromptu counseling, unfortunately, and it's awkward. I mean, it can become very awkward, and I feel like all you could really do is sit there and smile and sort of use the nonverbal communication, and like it's just the more I realize, it's like the more that I'm utilizing fundamental counseling skills on dates in these situations where it's like, what else can I do but be empathetic and nod and sort of restate things and just be there to listen. And I think there is a place for it. I don't think it's all inappropriate, but sometimes it can become very draining. And I think at the end of the day, it's like I'm going out with you. I'm interviewing you to be my wife potentially. That's the point of why I date, at least as a frum person. So where the line could sort of get blurred and go into that is something that I've definitely dealt with more than I would have liked to.
Yeah, it's hard. So,
Yeah, for
I have a
sure.
question. So, you mentioned this a little bit
Yes.
at the beginning also, but being a rabbi, you said you're an assistant rabbi of a shul, correct?
Now it was the senior rabbi of a shul in Whitestone,
Oh,
Queens. Yes,
senior rabbi. Do
senior rabbi.
you,
Yes.
was that hard to get a job like that being single?
So I'll tell you, in the more conventional sort of Orthodox world, so the way that it works for the most part is your very established shuls in communities like Bergen County or the Five Towns or Riverdale or so forth. Those shuls are generally not very much inclined to hire somebody who is single. The kinds of congregations that I've worked in my career, and I've worked in three. I was formerly the assistant rabbi of Young Israel in Co-op City, where the senior rabbi was also not married. Shout out to Rabbi Cronin Golden Yirtzeh Hashem by you soon. And then I was at the Shore Parkway Jewish Center in Brooklyn, and now Whitestone. So The kinds of positions that I've always gravitated towards, or where I've been able to have a rabbinus, these are shuls that, while they are all in New York City, they do have sort of a more out of town kind of feel, because these are communities that all sort of follow one specific pattern, where you had sort of neighborhoods that were very Jewish once upon a time in the post-World War II period, the baby boomer period. You had housing that went up, Mitchell-Lama housing specifically in these communities that were like 80% Jewish at one time. Over the years, the demographics changed, and you still have a very small remnant of mostly older Jews that are left in these areas where their kids moved on and went other places. And while many of my congregants have generally been more traditional rather than from my current shul now, most, I would say only about maybe a quarter of the families are Shomer Shabbos, I find that those communities do tend to have more of an openness to a rabbi who's not yet married. And I enjoy the work because A, there is an aspect of kiruv to what I do, and B, if you didn't have an Orthodox rabbi in schools where you have a diversity of observance levels, the shul might go conservative. They might get a JTS rabbi. They might veer even more away from tradition and halacha. So definitely I could say that I would say sort of more of the established shuls would probably be more off limits to rabbis who are not yet married. But the work that I'm able to do is very impactful, Baruch Hashem. And I think I'm able to perhaps even have a greater impact than I would in a shul where everybody is on a higher level of observance.
Yeah. I asked, it's all very interesting. I asked because I remember I don't really go there much anymore, but my neighborhood here in New York City, I was going to a shul and they have a young professionals minyan, and the assistant rabbi of the shul, their job is basically to be the rabbi of the young professionals as well.
Mhm.
And they were interviewing new assistant rabbis, and of course they send them to the young professionals to meet, to see how it is. There's a committee of young professionals. I had friends who were on the committee, and there was one rabbi that they were interviewing who was single. And it goes against everything I believe in because I believe that single people should be treated like anyone else in an Orthodox community.
Absolutely.
But it was a point of like it was a sticking point of should they hire him, because number one, I live in a very predominantly young professional community as it is, and he was going to be the rabbi of the young professionals. So it's it's an assistant rabbi who is our peer, and also not that being single makes you less of a peer, or being married makes you less of a peer than like a leader, but I don't know. I thought about it. I'm like, I don't know if I would feel comfortable like sending my question. Not that I send that many questions, but the past rabbi who was there, anytime I did have a question, I would text him. I would ask him. And I don't know. It was like this whole conflict. I didn't really have much say, so my opinion didn't really matter. But it was a sticking point that everyone was discussing. So they ended up, honestly, I don't even remember what happened. I don't even know. I think they didn't even hire anyone for a little while, but yeah, it was all very interesting. And I don't know. I just remember thinking, I was like, if my job was dependent on me being married, I would be so upset.
100%. It's funny you mention this because now that I'm thinking about it, the date that I went on where this young woman just complained about her ex-husband and her kids and her life situation in general, the topic of sort of like marriage and gittin and all of that came up. And I'll never forget when I told her that I had learned Hilchos Gittin and that part of that was really seeing how it's done, seeing how the Seder Haget is conducted and so forth. God, the look on this woman's face, it was like she had seen a ghost or something. And she then proceeded to really like berate me and attack me, like, that's weird, that's strange, this, that, and the other. And I said, well, if we don't learn these things and see how they're done, how do we learn Torah? Like, and it's part of a broader mentality that we tend to really infantilize, I think, people that are not married to some extent, and we take too much to heart. It's a very antiquated attitude. It's like that old song from the Rat Pack, "You're nobody till somebody loves you," right? It's this kind of attitude that I think is very pervasive. And like just having experienced that, it's like this attitude, well, if you're not married, it's weird that you should be involved in being a Masada Kedushin, which I have smicha and I have a certificate in that, or to have learned Hilchos and it was just very strange to be on a date in the back of an Uber with somebody being attacked over the fact that I actually am a legitimate rabbi who learned these things and got trained in these things. So
Yeah, that's so strange.
very, very strange. Very, very
Like,
strange
I
indeed.
would expect a rabbi to know.
Right. So the one area that I will not get involved in, not being married yet, is I won't into Harissa Mishpacha Shilas. Done a good amount of learning towards it. I will not get tested until I am married, Emir Hashem. But I mean, I think for just practical sneeze reasons, that's understandable. I mean, you have the whole thing. Do women really feel comfortable going to a male rabbi at all about that? We have the Yoetz at Halacha nowadays that I think could be very good at dealing with that aspect of it, but that's a tangent. But I think it does tie into this sort of broader aspect of, I would say it's almost like a dehumanization. We tend to neglect that people like marriage is not the magic pill that makes a person whole, complete, smart, educated, et cetera, et cetera. People nonetheless have to work on themselves, and people are established in careers and they're getting educated and they're learning Torah and doing amazing things, chesed, so on and so forth. Just living their best lives, trying to work on themselves and be the best people they can be, which I think should be seen really as a positive thing. It should be seen as really preparation for when you meet the one. These are things that will make you a better person and make you a better spouse, we hope, Mirza Hashem.
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel like the more time I'm single, the more I work on myself and I better myself to be ready to meet that person. So,
Absolutely. Life doesn't stop because we haven't met the one yet. And
exactly.
that's and to basically be on a date with somebody where I'm being chastised for doing precisely that. That was something that I really thought long and hard about afterwards. But at that moment, I wanted to end the date. But Derech Eretz, I still went to dinner with the young lady and on the
This was
third date.
before
But
dinner.
this was even before dinner. Yeah, that this
I would have
conversation
turned that
came
car
up.
around.
Yeah, I was very tempted to, but I said to myself, if I do the right thing, Hashem should have Rahman on me. So yeah, that was one of the more interesting experiences I had. I could say, Baruch Hashem, I haven't gone through a lot of the things that I've heard some of your female guests especially go through. I've heard ladies on this podcast say stories about how I think I listened to one of your more recent podcasts where the young woman you had on said that the guy sent her a link to his Instagram page where he like painted himself nude.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
That was a
like
wild story.
yeah, that was the wild story. So I can't really say that I have anything to that extent. Although I have dealt, unfortunately, with I hate to say it, but I have dealt with deception. I have dealt with things sort of not being disclosed, even even by day three or four, and very unfortunate.
Like,
And
what kinds of things, if you
uh,
don't mind me asking? If it's too personal, you don't
sure,
have to share.
sure, and this is going to get a little darker, a little deep. I think, like many people who sort of come into the frum world from the outside world, we kind of come in sort of maybe Pollyannish with an expectation or a hope that we think that the Torah would really mold people into being better human beings, that people would emphasize the Bein Adam L'Chavero, the extent that they would the Bein Adam L'Makom. And I could say, going through the dating process, that really shattered that illusion quite. That illusion has gotten very decisively shattered. There are very serious issues of abuse that go on, and neglect, and there is a lot of untreated, unrecognized mental illness, emotional limitations or emotional challenges. And unfortunately, and I think this might be true of sort of the more traditional shidduch or shadchan route, very often the idea that will often come to mind is, well, if a person has an atypical background. They're not a person who doesn't have sort of a cookie cutter or textbook example of a background. Like this is the kind of person that we could set up with somebody that has very severe physical illness, chronic illness, mental illness, a history of abuse and things like that. And I've experienced that. And Baruch Hashem, it's a situation that eventually I was able to get out of. But that's definitely something that has been a source of disappointment in a certain sense. But the nice thing about having experienced that is at least it gives us the sense, the intuition to be able to know what to be more aware of and to be able to weed that out or parse it out sooner.
Yeah, that's very hard. I guess I didn't have anything to that extent, but I don't know. I feel like you reach a certain age and shotgun, I mean, especially as a woman, and this was my whole experience why I canceled my Why You Connects account. They would just send me guys with something wrong with them. These
Hmm.
guys, either they had mental issues. I talked to a guy, I reported him after I had a phone call with him. Like the things he was
Right.
saying, I'm like, there's something wrong with him and he should not be able to date women on this site. And it's just a shame that they devalue people so much just for being single or of a certain background or a certain age that they think that not that people who have these mental illnesses or disabilities or anything, not that they don't deserve to date either. They do, but it's just they just think they can throw anyone with that any type
The
of
nail on the head.
anything that
Hmm.
makes them not fit into a box and they could just throw them all together because who knows, but
Right.
it's crazy.
It really is. And sort of the flip side of that, and this is something that I've experienced also. I I'm very much a believer in giving people a chance. Even after what I went through, I don't think if a person has a diagnosis and they're treating it and they're taking care of themselves, I don't necessarily think that should be a deal breaker. I don't think such a person doesn't deserve or should have. But on the other hand, what I've experienced is that if you do indicate to a shadchan, or if you do indicate on the resume that you would be willing to consider somebody who has an illness or a mental illness that's being treated, or even a minor disability, rather than people seeing it as the fact that this is an open-minded person who's serious about getting married, they're going to sort of cast a wide net. Rather than people seeing it that way, my experience has been that the first thing that they assume is, well, what's wrong with this person that they're saying that? There must be something wrong with the person to have that openness. And that's something that I found to be very, very heartbreaking, but that is the perception, at least. And we tend to reduce people to labels, I think, in many instances where we even are very quick to rush to judgment and say, well, if a person is open to those that have a bit of baggage, well, then there must be something wrong with them. Rather than just thinking, well, the person is serious about getting married, they're going to consider a wide range of options.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've personally never experienced that because however bad this makes me sound, like I'm not open. I'm not open to that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But it is unfortunate because it just means you have an open mind and people are allowed to be open-minded without there being something wrong with them.
Exactly, and that seems to get lost somewhere in that seems to get lost somewhere in this whole system, in
The
this whole
whole
process,
the whole
unfortunately.
system is just broken in general. I think that's what it comes
Yes.
down to.
It's a system that dehumanizes. It's a system that reduces people to boxes, to sound bites, to one-liners. And as you mentioned, I think the resume is really something that is the catalyst for all of this. I think the whole institution of resumes, which I don't think is something that's really been in vogue for more than a couple of decades at this point. I think that this is really a system or a thing that really does fuel a lot of this dehumanization, a lot of this marginalization that occurs within the whole system of shidduch dating.
Yeah. Would you say you do most of your dating through Shadchanim?
Most of it has been. Most of the dating that I've done has had a shadchan involved. I've also tried JWed. I haven't gone on any of the other apps. Like what do you have? You have Loop and JSwipe. I haven't really gone on to those apps, but most of my experience has been with shadchanim. And I would say that most of the shadchanim that I've dealt with, it's not easy. I mean, I'll be the first to say that it's not easy. I've tried making shidduchim before, and in trying to do it, I think you realize that people are very quick to just be very fixated on minutia. And they're very
Yes.
picky about things that really should not matter or things that really should not make such a difference. You know, people will not really have sort of a mindfulness about dating, or they'll just approach it on the basis of whim. They'll approach things on the basis of an insight, but not really think deliberately about the decisions that are being made. And that could be very hurtful for many people to sort of be on the other end of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and I was going to say to that effect, I think that we really need to look at people as being sort of whole beings, and to realize that also people's approaches to Yiddishkeit, people's approaches to halacha can't necessarily be reduced to a soundbite. I would say maybe in a more general sense, the degree to which a person engages with the secular world or modernity, there could sort of be, I guess, like a generalization you can make about that. But for those of us, let's say, who didn't go through the YU system, went to more right-leaning yeshivas, but practically we are comfortable with TV, movies, music, stuff like that. I find that we're in this constant back and forth between being too firm for some or being perceived to be too firm for some, and others say you're not firm enough.
Yeah. I mean, I come from a very modern background, so I can't relate in that sense, but I do have friends who come from more yeshivish backgrounds, but are more modern now. And it goes back to
Right.
the whole thing, trying to put people in boxes when people don't necessarily fit in boxes. And the whole idea of resumes and like the shidduch world is just trying to put people in a box and matching boxes. And it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. People are a whole world unto themselves. And I think it's high time that we start to give people the respect and the dignity that they deserve. And such a sensitive area of our lives, we would hope would reflect that more than others. And unfortunately, we see the opposite. But I try to stay hopeful, prayerful, positive, and keep doing my hishtadlus. And I hope that a lot of this mishigas is stuff that we could sort of rise above.
Yeah, me too. I think this would be a good place to take a quick break. So we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Sticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929 376 9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world.
Okay, we're back, everyone. So, Daniel, I have a question. Do you,
Yes.
because you're a rabbi of a congregation. Have you ever like dated a congregant?
That's a very good question. I actually never have. The closest that I've ever gotten to was one of my congregants suggesting a niece of theirs that lived in another city. That was the closest I got to it. I'm very much of the opinion that it's crossing a boundary. And I think it's generally accepted. And just in my research, in religions where clergy do marry, whether it be the Jewish denominations or even in like the Protestant Christian world, it's generally accepted across the world in clergy associations that you do not date people with whom you could have a pastoral or rabbinic type relationship. So for me, that is definitely a line that I wouldn't cross. And I would say also that in sort of the context of dating or relationships, I make it very clear. I mean, I make it very clear when I meet people that I'm not looking for a Rebbitzin. I'm very, very clear about that. That I'm not looking for somebody who's going to do that because in the Orthodox world, the rabbi's wife generally ends up becoming an unpaid member of the clergy team in terms of having to be there to answer women's questions and teach women's classes and do Nishay or sisterhood things or do Hafrashas challah parties or anything like that. And I make it very clear I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for somebody that has a very, very firm sense of self and identity, is comfortable in what they do, and so forth. But I mean, I understand why I think it could be weird to some people because, like a lot of people, they think of the rabbi as being a man who's older than Methuselah with Rebbitzin, and that's that. It's kind of the image that people have. People often struggle, and my experience in dating has been that the of a young or youngish rabbi is something that's kind of a chiddush. It's kind of a novelty to many people. But I'm very careful to keep the boundaries in place and if somebody wants to ask me what bracha you make on this or that, I'll tell them. But any kind of personal eitzah or advice, I generally don't dispense. And I wouldn't unless I'm very seriously involved with somebody.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So you haven't ever had like a situation where someone tries to set you up with another congregant or one of your congregants or anything?
It's happened where congregants have suggested they have a granddaughter, they have a niece, something like that. It has come up. It's come up a couple of times. The people that I serve the people that I serve doesn't happen all the time because a lot of their families are not sort of holding in the same place where I am in terms of Yiddishkeit, but it has come up before. And whenever it does come up, I'm very respectful and very careful to say that I feel like it's a boundary that shouldn't be crossed because people are no gay bedover. People are very biased in their relationships and if you date a congregant's niece or granddaughter or whatever, it doesn't go right. When things don't go right, people have their sense of perspective of what to say about the other person, and I feel that that could unnecessarily complicate my rabbinic work. So it's something that I generally try to stay very clear of.
So you won't even
And
date like if a congregant tries to set you up with somebody, you won't even do that?
I would be very careful before doing it. Again, I haven't had it happen all too often in my career, but I would have to think very carefully about sort of how close they are how close they are to the congregant, and I would have to be very deliberate before entertaining the idea of it. And my natural inclination is to err on the side of caution and to avoid it entirely, honestly.
Yeah, it's so hard because I'm sure I mean, of course, I've never been a rabbi to people, but you're in a congregation full of Jewish like family members, like everyone's trying to set up their single niece, nephew,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
in this case, their nieces, their daughters, their
Yep.
granddaughters, their sisters, their friends, their cousins. So it like it must be hard to say no because you probably I mean, I know you said it doesn't come up that often, but the fact that it has come up and that you have these congregants who I'm assuming love you and want to find you
Sure.
someone
Yes.
as all of
Absolutely.
as everyone in all these Jewish communities do. So it must be like hard to say no and put your professionalism before your dating life. So it's admirable
Yeah.
and hard.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It is definitely hard. it's also hard not being able to go on, like I see all the time on the different WhatsApp groups and so forth. You have these singles Shabbatons, the
Hmm.
vast majority of which I can't go on because I'm on Shabbat. That's my day to be on basically, and I have to be present in the shul. So that's actually hardship at times also. But I always sort of keep focused on the bigger picture, which is that I represent Torah and I represent Klal Yisrael to the broader world. And that's the work that I've been called to. And at least for this season of my life, that is what I'm involved in. Truthfully, if I do get married, Amir Hashem, I probably would not function as a congregational rabbi anymore. There's also a reason why I decided to sort of broaden my horizons professionally, because I recognize that there can be many challenges and difficulties that sort of arise in married life while also being the revolution. So for me personally, I had that self-awareness to realize that, yes, I'll always answer questions. I'll always teach. I upload Shiurim to YouTube. I'll always sort of have like that broader reach, but to necessarily be the Rabbi Shul always, I'm open to where my professional career and professional life would take me beyond that.
So you don't want to continue to be a shul rabbi once you get married?
Under the current circumstances of where I am, it would be enormously difficult. Yeah, just the practical logistics and circumstances of where I'm at currently, it would be very difficult. I would be open to continuing it if my wife would be okay with it,
Hmm.
but I am prepared for the possibility of just making a full transition into making a pranasa through other means, so as to be able to have, in certain ways, I guess, a more simple life that would be more conducive to shalom bayis.
It's very interesting. It's nice. It's you're looking out for your future wife. I mean, again, I'm sure I know the Rebbitzins of the shuls that I've gone to who are always, like you said, basically an unpaid member of the clergy.
Yes.
So it is,
Yeah. Not an
it's,
expectation. It is not an expectation I have. It's not something I desire necessarily. If I met
yeah,
somebody who wanted to do that, fine, give some to hate, that would be wonderful. But I feel like it's a very unfair thing to expect of somebody, and I don't expect it of somebody.
yeah. Daniel, do you have any more stories you want to share?
Yeah, so I have to say, sort of, I think I shared already one of the more colorful. That was certainly one of the more colorful ones. I think in general, sort of just one of the things that I could say from my experiences, perhaps some of the more recent experiences, is that I mean, I don't want to cast sort of a broad brush, but I think that we need to do a lot more to kind of teach emotional intelligence. I think we need to put a little bit more of an emphasis on emotional intelligence. Like I don't have necessarily crazy stories, but I just sort of have noticed that there often is sort of a lack of it. I could say that one of the more recent stories I could relate is that somebody was upset with me because I picked up, and this was even through texting, I sort of picked up through cadence and so forth that maybe something wasn't exactly right. And I asked them, and rather than being direct and communicating needs, it's like after the fact, in retrospect, the person was upset that I wasn't able to determine that they weren't doing well and that I should have called them and knew that that was the case. Like just a
Was
very
this
bizarre
someone, this was like a
thing.
first phone call? Like this was before you went out, or this you had already been dating?
So this is somebody that I had spoken. This was after just speaking to somebody for a couple of dates. This was somebody who lived actually in another country.
Okay, so it was like a
And
long distance.
it was like a long distance thing. We had a couple of calls already,
Okay.
and it was one of the things that really led me to determine I couldn't continue because we can't expect people to be mind readers. And I think just in general, like just in human relationships in general, I think it's one of the areas where we often create trouble for ourselves is where we expect people to be mind readers. We expect people to know what it is we need without us communicating that to them. And that was definitely one of the more bizarre or really unfortunate and troubling experiences I could say I've gone through in the process of dating.
Wow. Yeah, it's really hard, but I agree. Like I'm definitely the type of person who I'll tell you when something's wrong or when something's off. But it's crazy that she wanted you to know And you hadn't even been in person.
Never been in person. Yeah, it was just in the process of really getting to know each other through some texting and a couple of phone calls.
Yeah. That's it's hard. I get it. Like when people are going through a hard time, they're extra sensitive, but it's still hard. You can't really have those types of expectations on someone else.
Right.
And she never like apologized for that.
No, and rather that, so that day, or perhaps it was the next day, they were just very upset about this and they got off the call abruptly and they said that they would be in touch. They said, give me a day, I'll be in touch. They were never in touch. And instead they told the shadchan that I was supposed to call them and never did. So that was gaslighting at its finest. And the even more disturbing thing was that this was somebody who had studied psychology and they were gaslighting me. So that was yeah. Oh, here, and I'll share with you another one. This was also an interesting experience I had not very long ago either. Again, somebody that I hadn't actually gone out with. We had just sort of been talking and preparing to be able to go out. I think similar to your experience, they were upset that I wasn't able to go out 2+ times a week because I'm busy with work and other things. I made it clear to them Sundays are a very good day for me. That's my day off. That's really the best day for me. I can maybe do another weeknight if I rearrange my schedule, but they were just being very demanding. Like having not ever met me, they were making these demands on my schedule. And sort of the muck at the patish, the straw that broke the camel's back was that they told me that they had a bunch of limitations and issues with work. They weren't able to work too much. They wanted me to give them money. They wanted me to give them a donation,
What
basically.
the heck?
Yeah, yeah.
They
They sent
asked
me
you for
this.
money?
They asked me for money, and I asked, well, what's the money for? They said, oh, well, I want to go to a lounge with my friends.
What? And you never
Yeah,
met this person?
I had
What
never met them
the heck?
face to face. Yeah, I was just talking to them on the phone. That was pretty funny. And then, yeah, and then they sent me this letter from a Rav that they could collect funds. They asked me to post it on WhatsApp. I said, as a friendly thing, I'll do it. And then when I wasn't doing it fast enough, they said they just turned on me and said, not
Were they a
interested in talking to you
catfish?
anymore. Could be, could be a catfish. And I will say that these more, just to sort of put out a PSA, a public service announcement, some of these more bizarre cases were people that I had been introduced to through these WhatsApp groups. You have these
Really?
WhatsApp groups where resumes go up and there are shadchanim involved, and some of these more bizarre experiences have occurred through those groups. So I always
Oh
say,
my
kaveh
gosh.
emptor, buyer beware. And references are not even a help because at the end of the day, people are only listing references of people who they know are going to say favorable things about them.
Yeah.
We put such an emphasis on this. Well, of course, you're going to list your best friend and people who love you and adore you, and they think, of course, you're only going to list as references people who think you're the best thing since penicillin.
Yeah. That's so crazy. Actually, wait, I do have a story my friend reminded me of. It's along similar lines. So this happened last year. So this was I was talking to this guy like December time, 2024. So I can't remember how long we were talking. It was long distance. He was out of state, and we had a few video calls here and there, texting. And on one of our calls, he's like, "Okay, I want to come to New York and see you." And I think he might have mentioned like staying at my apartment, and I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm like, I
Yikes.
am not comfortable with that. You are a stranger. Absolutely not. And he's like, oh, no worries. He told me he had multiple friends who lived either in my neighborhood or in neighborhoods near my neighborhood
Why wouldn't he
that
stay with them?
yeah, so he says, "Oh, no problem. I just thought I would ask. I have a bunch of friends. I will stay with one of my friends and I'll take you on a date and everything's good." So then I was like hearing from him less and less. And New Year's Eve, I was just like, I need a fresh start. I want to go into 2025 not not with these like random guys. I had a couple like stragglers. You can see it. I didn't really think anything was going to happen with any of them, which is why there were more than one. So going into 2025, I was like, I'm just going to cut these guys loose. I don't want anything to do with them. It's clearly not working out. So I sent him this whole text like, hey, I haven't really heard from you much lately. I just like let's leave this in 2024. Like, Happy New Year and have a nice life, basically. So then he, I have to open the text messages. My, so this past Shabbat, my friend reminded me of this. I totally forgot about this story. And she was like, Rachel, do you remember that guy? And so I have to read the messages. So, oh, the message I had sent was, "Hey, I haven't been hearing from you much lately. Hope everything is okay. That being said, I don't think I see this going anywhere, and I think it's best to leave it in 2024. Happy New Year and good luck with everything." So he responds, "I appreciate you reaching out, and I understand how you're feeling. I want to be honest. I still believe in us and would like to keep working on what we have. If you're open to it, I love
Right.
the chance to talk more and see if we can move forward together. Either way, I wish you a happy new year as well." Like, mind you, this guy and I have had like a few brief like video calls, like that's and like a little bit of texting. And then basically I just pointed that out. I was like, "Listen, I don't think we can really build anything on brief phone calls. Like, you don't really text me
Right.
back and you only really stay on
Yeah.
the phone for like 5 minutes. So like I just don't think we can build anything real with that." And so he's going on and on about like, "I understand, I appreciate what you're saying." He's like, "I care about you. I care about you. We've never met and want to make this work, but I also recognize that I need to show that more clearly. If you're willing to give me a chance, I'm committed to putting in the effort to build something real with you. Let me know if you're open to that." And then he says, "I would appreciate if you could buy me a ticket to New York and stay at your place. I would be willing to do that. I would be willing to do that so we can
Right.
work on this relationship and take the next steps towards long-term relationship."
Lovely.
Like, he's
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, I really want to work on this. If I would be open to you buying me a plane ticket and letting me stay at your apartment."
Right.
Yeah, so I told him absolutely not. And then I won't read all the messages, but I basically said absolutely not. Like, what audacity? Like, no.
It's real chutzpah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, the audacity. And then he was like, "Oh, text me later when you're in a better mood." And I was like, "I'm in a good like I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood. Never speak to me
Very
ever again.
presumptuous.
Do
Yeah.
not talk to me ever again." And
Yeah.
then he sent me a couple texts over the beginning of 2025. I think he sent me a Valentine's Day text. He's like, "Hope you're having a great Valentine's Day." And then he sent me another text and he's like, "I miss you." It's like, I never met
Right.
you. But yeah, no,
Yep.
this guy who like wanted me to buy him a plane ticket and he's a stranger and let him stay at my apartment. Like, no.
Yikes. That's not a red flag at all.
Yeah, so talk about
Yeah.
emotional intelligence.
Yep.
No, I wonder what he's up to in life. I never responded.
Well, I would say in general, when people do these things, when people hurt us or make us uncomfortable, I always just say to myself, I don't really believe that they know the extent of what they're doing, so I daven that they should have a refuah shlema. And if you've ever seen Fiddler on the Roof, you give them the Tsar's blessing, right? Remember, they asked the rabbi, "What's the blessing you give the Tsar?" God should bless and keep him and protect him, but keep him far away from me.
Yeah, you're
You know,
better than I am. I don't wish them well. I just want them away from me. Like, go
yeah,
do whatever you want. I don't wish you well. I don't really
yeah,
care about you, but just like stay away from me.
yeah, yeah. It's very stalkerish. I'm very sorry you went through that. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It happens. But no, I completely forgot about that story. And it's just like the most ridiculous thing. Like, some guy asking me to buy him a plane ticket. Like, in what world? He clearly doesn't know me. And also asking to stay at my
Right.
apartment. I'm like, literally, no. Like, that's a safety issue. Also, it's just like,
Extremely, extremely so.
it's not what I do. Like,
Right.
in the religious world also, it's like, and granted, I'm more modern. So like, if I did have a relationship with this person and I felt comfortable with them and we were in an actual relationship, okay, staying at my apartment is a different story. But if you're a stranger that I've never met before, like, no. But
Yeah. That's a dangerous situation.
yeah.
That certainly is, yeah, that's a walking red flag right there. So that's a textbook example of that, just like the young woman I went on a date with, where the whole time I was sitting there listening to her complain about her ex-husband and how her kids were in foster care and taken away from her because of her untreated bipolar, this, that, and the other.
Ay,
Hashem bless and keep these people far away from us.
oh man. Daniel, do you have any other stories or anything else you want to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, here's another thing, and this is interesting, and I'm curious to see what your perspective might be on this. I've had people, and even this is just in the talking phase, getting to know people. I've experienced this twice, where they complain that I work too much, but yet they say that they also don't really have a career of their own. So they want to be supported by a husband, by a guy, but yet they also complain if you're too hardworking and they feel like you don't have enough time for them. Which I think ties very much into sort of this lack of boundaries that and lack of respect that people often have for our lives. And they don't recognize that we are doing our best to try to make time and to make space for people, but that at the end of the day, the bills don't pay themselves. The beat goes on. We have careers to attend to, educations to attend to, and all of the other things of life that we need to do.
Yeah.
So that's actually something that I've experienced quite more of than I thought I would, where on the one hand, I'll be accused of workaholism, or they'll complain that, well, I'm very hardworking and successful, but yet on the other hand, they don't have a career of their own.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I've had similar situations just because I'm a woman, but also I
Sure.
don't
But
date
yeah,
guys without careers. That's like one of my deal breakers. I I'm not gonna support some man through life. So we support each other in
good for
other
you.
ways, but
That's
I'm
it.
not going to financially support some man. That is like a deal breaker. If I'm financially supporting someone, I will be financially supporting myself by myself. So
100%. I think that a lot of people, myself included, might subconsciously want to fix people, especially people that I think are drawn to the helping professions, might subconsciously have this desire, or maybe we just end up finding ourselves in situations where we end up with people that are dysfunctional. We might want to fix them. But I think that what you're saying is very important, that we should not get ourselves entangled in situations where people cannot make it on their own, especially at our age.
yeah,
I think to have a profession that you love doing is just a necessary and important part of being a human being. It's also a very important part of Jewish life as well. I think if you're married to somebody and they lose their job and they get laid off or whatever, they have to find another job. That's a totally different matter. But,
oh, so
you know,
different.
yeah, that's a very different situation. But to be in your 20s, to be in your 30s, and to not work, or to not be focused on something, trying to get to the next stage in life through education or training or whatnot, very, very big problem.
Yeah, I agree, and it's amazing how many people out there are like basically unemployed. Which is,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Everybody should, I believe there is a lid for every pot, but especially from the perspective of being a man, you have a halachic obligation to support your wife and family. That's a kasuba obligation. So we need to focus on the order of appearance here and get our priorities straight, where you do need to be a breadwinner and contribute to society before thinking about getting married. 100%.
yeah, yeah. We're all independent. We should all be independent adults, and a partner should be a partner, not someone to just like take care of
Exactly.
you and do everything.
Precisely. It is not 1952 anymore. The world has changed. And I think this is an area where the world has certainly changed for the better, where education and careers and women being leaders in various fields, this is a wonderful thing that's come about. And,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
I personally know more women with good careers than men with good careers, but like all of my female friends are like so accomplished and educated and have great jobs and take really good care of themselves. And then all these guys who I see on these WhatsApp groups and these dating apps and everything are just like not it. They don't.
unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately so. Like, this is for boys and for men as well. It's like that Sabrina song, Man Child, right? We see a lot more
Yes.
of that nowadays than we would like otherwise. And It's just making me think, like one of my stories. Me being a rabbi saying that would be a turnoff to some people, if you could imagine. Like you're a rabbi, you're
Oh,
not
you're
allowed
not
to
allowed to
listen
talk
to
about
music.
Sabrina Carpenter?
You know, talk about Sabrina Carpenter, right? But
I think it's fun that
but
a rabbi talks about Sabrina Carpenter.
like in
I
my
would if my rabbi's speech was talking about Sabrina Carpenter, like if the rabbi's speech incorporated Sabrina Carpenter or Sabrina Carpenter lyrics, I would maybe pay attention more.
yeah, my style in Rabbinus is really that when I speak, I always like to tie things into what's going on in the world. I have Torah sources in my sermons, but I always like drawing from music and lyrics and popular culture as well, because you have to meet people where they're at and draw meaning and weave meaning together for people from what our frame of reference is. But I think what you're hitting on is really a very sad sort of trend we see in society where for the male folk, it's like a lost generation in certain ways. Granted, we're living in difficult times where a college degree is not necessarily linked to employment or good prospects, but even in the broader sense, in terms of emotional intelligence and just being emotionally healthy and being self-aware and all of that, the men folk are sadly lagging behind, and maybe professionally, that's something that I would like to address on some license. But it is very true what you're saying, I think, and it is unfortunate that we do have this imbalance that exists. And I think the same interview you had where your guest, who was also, I think, a therapist in training, yeah, I think she was really saying that like there is an awkwardness really amongst single guys at a certain age that we see a lot more nowadays, and it's unfortunate. And I think it's the result of isolation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, I personally don't believe in the male loneliness epidemic. I believe that it's a thing, but I believe it's self-inflicted.
Mhm.
Like, just being a woman,
Oh,
it's fun.
yes.
It's
Right.
interesting because as a woman, I find that like women love community and women love things that bring other women together and it's
Mhm.
fun and we enjoy it and like I'll give you a couple of small examples. I There's a TV show, Heated Rivalry, which again, my listeners, whether you've watched it or not, you've definitely heard of it. The gay hockey player show, like there's something about it. It's those 6 episodes, like now it's my whole social media feed, and I'm not mad about it. I'm reading the books, I watch the show, I rewatch the show, and I talk about it with my friends. And like, it's come up at every Shabbos table discussion that I've been at since I've watched it. And it's just like a sense of community. And it's just so fun. Like, all the girls are fans and like having fun with it. I also, I recently, this is like, I've had this thought for a long time, obviously. You guys know I talk about it quite a bit or talk about women versus men quite a bit. But recently I am into the fiber arts. So I knit and I crochet. And I have some friends who are also crafters. And one of my friends, there's this, apparently there's a women's sports bar downtown where they play women's sports. And once a month, this organizer organizes, they call it like a crafting happy hour. And it's like for a couple hours, it's from like 12 to 3 or something. And it's, I think, one Sunday a month. They have like a crafting happy hour at this women's sports bar. And so my friends and I went a couple weeks ago, and it was the most amazing thing. We walk in and all these women are there. Everyone's talking to each other, looking at their patterns. Like, you don't know these people and you're in New York City. Like, this is the middle of New York City, and like everyone's talking to each other, everyone's having fun, everyone's
Oh,
comparing
wonderful.
projects,
It's
talking about what they're making.
what we need. We need more
And
of that. Yeah.
it's just like this whole sense of community. And what I think is ironic is the world is built for men to do that. Like a a women's sports bar, okay, that's where the women are gathering, but like what about every single other sports bar that is in New York City? Like, how many
Yeah.
thousands of sports bars are there that like, why are the men lonely? They could just go to a sports bar. Or like men,
Well,
the
there they could
things
go
that
to
men are
go to a
interested
minion,
in.
go to a shear. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
go to Minion, go to Sheer for the religious folks. Like, there's so many things set up for men to find community in, and they just don't. And then they're lonely. They say that they're the male loneliness epidemic that they're trying to blame on women. Like, no,
Oh, self-inflicted. Self-inflicted.
it's self-inflicted.
Uh, it's self-inflicted. And In general, I think we just need more personal responsibility in general. People always look for us, so they always look for a scapegoat. We need more personal responsibility in general. And I think if more people in the parsha of dating just took self-responsibility, I think people would be better. I think they would be better molded individuals and they would make better partners.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm not saying women are perfect either. I think everyone can work on themselves. Everyone can look within
100%.
to to make themselves better and more open for their future partner to come. So they can be the best version
100%.
of themselves to attract that best partner for them.
Absolutely. And one thing I do that I would generally suggest to people if you're single, start reading Shalom Bayis books. Never too early to get started. I think it's very important. Work on yourselves, but also learn about relationships, learn about how to communicate. So many problems I see, not even in romantic relationships, just in human relationships in general. Being in human resources, being in the nonprofit world, so many issues come about from lapses in communication. We expect people to pick up on what we don't say. We expect people to often be mind readers, and this is where conflict comes in. So I would definitely hope that we all work on that as well. And dating should go better for us as a result of your session.
Oh man. So, Daniel, is there anything else that you want to discuss or tell us before we get to our wrap up segment?
Yeah, if I sort of had to go on my soapbox for for just one more minute,
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, we all realize that we want connection. We realize that we want companionship. Nobody wants to die alone. But we want it with the right people. And I think a little generosity of spirit goes a very long way. I think that we often have a preconceived notion of who we're looking for. It's often that we shoot the arrow when we draw the bullseye around it rather than being fully open and receptive to what's out there. And my hope and my prayer for all of the singles, myself included, would be that we could have an open mind and open heart while knowing what we want, while having a general idea of what we want. Be open to what's out there. Don't get fixated on details that don't really make such a difference in whether a person is healthy, happy, well adjusted, and whether they could be a good husband or wife. I think that that would really be my rallying cry. And let's not judge people based on a resume. Let's not judge people based on a Google search. Let's try to get to know people for the human beings they are. And in having Rahmanas on others, we hope that Hashem would have Rahmanas on us and that we would all find the Recht B'Shirach B'Meira.
Oh man. Well, okay, so Daniel, I know you gave us some chizuk and advice, but can you give me and my listeners one piece of dating advice?
Yeah, if I could give one simple piece of advice, it would be openness. Be openness to the possibility of what's out there. Be open to people as they are. Be open to really getting to know people beyond a Google search or beyond a resume or beyond a one-page description. And also don't lose yourself in the process either. I think that's very important. Be true to yourself, work on yourself, be the best you could be. And the kindness that you should show yourself, also show it to other people. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all want the same thing. The piece of advice I often say to myself is this is somebody's sister, somebody's daughter. This is a beautiful human being created but B'Tselem Elohim. Let's treat each other as such. Let's treat each other with the dignity and the respect that we would all want done to ourselves. And I think if people kept that in mind, that would go a very far way.
It's great. It's good advice. And last but not least, Daniel, do you have your tagline?
Sure. I thought about this a while. I kind of researched it and I saw what Bethany Frankel's was and this, that, and the other. My tagline would be I'm a with it young rabbi with an old soul. I'm an old-fashioned gentleman in this day and age, looking to just do the right thing.
I like it. It's cute.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so
Daniel,
much.
Daniel, thank you so much. This has been so fun, so enlightening.
It really has. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And Sticky Situation Nation, you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.